Hi, my name is Dorothy, and I never thought I'd be telling this story. I was just an ordinary girl, living my life, going to school, playing with my friends. But everything changed on October 3rd, 2023.1. That was the day I died. I was gone for a few minutes, but in those moments I saw something beyond this world. Something so powerful, it still shakes me to my core. I met Jesus, and what he showed me about the spiritual deception happening in this world, especially about race, left me speechless. I have to share this with you because the truth can't wait. The morning of October 3rd, 2023 started like every other Tuesday. I woke up to the sound of birds outside my window, stretched my arms as wide as they could go and smiled. Tuesdays were my favorite. The sun peeked through my bedroom window, splashing golden light across my walls. Everything felt warm, safe, normal. I jumped out of bed, wiggled into my favorite pink t-shirt and jeans and ran to the kitchen, my socks sliding across the floor. Mama was already at the stove, flipping pancakes. The smell of butter and syrup filled the air, making my stomach growl. I climbed onto my chair, swinging my legs under the table, impatient for my plate. "Slow down, baby girl," Mama laughed, placing a pancake in front of me. "You act like you ain't never eaten before." I giggled, drowning my pancake in syrup before taking the biggest bite I could manage. Everything felt just right. After breakfast, I packed my school bag, grabbed my lunchbox and kissed Mama goodbye before heading to the bus stop. At school, it was just another normal day. Laughing with Mia at lunch, playing jump rope at recess, trying so hard to stay inside the lines on my colouring page in art class. I even got a gold star for my big blue butterfly. Everything about that day felt good, happy, safe. I had no idea that by the time the sun set, my whole world would be flipped upside down. After school, I ran home, my backpack bouncing on my shoulders. Mama wasn't home yet, but she had promised to bring my favourite cornbread from the bakery. I plopped onto the couch, flicked on cartoons and curled up under my blanket, waiting for her. Outside, the rain started tapping against the windows, soft at first, then steady. I loved the sound of the rain. It always made me feel cozy. I had no idea what was coming. Then the phone rang. At first I ignored it, too caught up in my show, but it kept ringing and ringing. Something in my stomach twisted. I grabbed the phone, pressing it to my ear. "Hello?" A man's voice answered. It was deep, serious. "Is this Dorothy's house?" "Yes," I said, suddenly feeling small. There was a pause. Too long, too quiet. Then the words that would change everything. "There's been an accident." I froze. My fingers gripped the phone so tightly they hurt. "What do you mean?" I whispered. The man kept talking, but I didn't hear most of it. My heartbeat was too loud, pounding in my ears like a drum. I only caught pieces. Rain, truck, impact. And then I heard the only word that mattered. "Maman." I don't remember what happened after that. Everything became a blur. The phone slipped from my hand. My feet were moving, running, but I didn't know where to go. The sound of sirens screaming through the air. Bright red and blue lights flashing through the rain. A woman in a uniform kneeling in front of me, telling me to breathe. But I couldn't. I couldn't breathe because the world didn't make sense anymore. Then, nothing. I don't remember falling. I don't remember hitting the floor. I just remember everything going dark. And then, something else. I was floating. At first, I didn't understand what was happening. I looked down and saw a little girl lying on the ground. Her arms were limp, her head tilted to the side. There were people rushing around her, shouting, moving fast. Then it hit me. That little girl was me. But how? How could I be up here, watching myself down there? I tried to move, to touch something, but I wasn't standing on anything. I was just there, floating like a balloon that had slipped out of someone's hand. And then something even stranger happened. Everything around me looked clearer. The colours were brighter, sharper. The red and blue lights from the ambulance weren't just flashing, they were glowing like tiny little stars. The rain wasn't just falling, it was floating like slow-motion diamonds sparkling in the air. Even the wind. It wasn't just blowing, it was singing. A soft, whispery song that I felt more than I heard. And then I saw her. Mama? No. Grandma. I had never met her, she had passed away before I was even born. But I knew it was her, the same face from the pictures on our living room wall. She stood near the ambulance, watching everything. She didn't look scared. She looked peaceful, calm. And she was smiling. At me. And that's when I knew I was dead. I should have been scared. I should have been crying, screaming, begging to go back. But I wasn't. I felt warm, wrapped up in something I couldn't see but could feel, like the biggest, safest hug in the world. And then it appeared, the light. Not like the ambulance lights, not like the headlights from the truck. This light was different. It wasn't just bright, it was alive. It surrounded me, wrapped around me, pulled me in like it knew me, like it had been waiting for me. And then the voice, "Dorothy, come." I knew who it was before I even turned around, Jesus. I didn't run, I didn't hide, I didn't ask questions, I just let go, and in that moment I knew. I wasn't afraid, I wasn't lost, I was going home. I ain't in pain, not even a little bit. I wasn't scared either, it was just quiet, real quiet. Like the whole world hit pause. Like somebody turned the volume down on everything. It was the strangest feeling. Like everything was still happening, but I wasn't part of it anymore. Like I was watching a movie but forgot I was in it. Then I looked down, and there I was, just laying there in that smashed-up car, twisted up all wrong. My arms all limp, my legs bent funny, glass glitter all over the place. Smoke curled up from the hood, black and thick like something out of a dream. People were running, shouting, eyes wide with panic. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer, louder, but they sounded far away, like they didn't belong to me no more. I saw a man in a uniform leaning over me, shaking me hard, his voice all wobbly like he ain't never been this scared before. "Dorothy, can you hear me? Dorothy?" His hands pressed down on me, his face tight with worry. I wanted to answer, I really did. I tried to say, "Yeah, I hear you," but nothing came out, because I wasn't in my body anymore. I was floating, just floating up in the air like I weighed nothing. But it wasn't like swimming or jumping real high on a trampoline. It was different. There wasn't any up or down, no heavy feeling in my chest. It was like being free. Not just free like running barefoot in the grass or laughing so hard your belly hurts. No, it was real freedom, like every worry, every fear, every little thing I ever held on to just disappeared. And then something else happened. Everything got clearer, like way clearer than before. The red and blue lights from the ambulance weren't just blinking, they were glowing like tiny stars dancing in the rain. And the rain, it wasn't just falling, it was slow, floating all gentle, like tiny pieces of glass catching the light. The wind moved through the trees, but it wasn't just wind. It had a feeling, like it was whispering something I couldn't quite hear. Everything felt so alive, more alive than it ever did when I was in my body. And then I saw her, Grandma. I'd never met her before, she passed long before I was even born, but I knew her. I knew her like I knew Mama's voice even in the dark, like I knew the smell of home when I walked through the door. She was standing near the ambulance just watching, not saying nothing, but her face, oh her face. It was so soft, so full of something I can't even describe, not just love, not just peace. It was like she was telling me something without even speaking, like she was happy to see me but sad at the same time. And her eyes, man, I ain't never seen love like that before. And that's when it hit me. I was dead. I should have been scared, should have been crying, screaming, begging to go back. But I wasn't. Matter of fact, I ain't never felt so calm before. It was like I had stepped out of something heavy I'd been carrying my whole life. No worry, no rushing, no trying to figure out what comes next, just peace. And then I saw the light, but not like how people talk about it. It wasn't a flashlight in your face kind of light. It wasn't the headlights from the truck, and it sure wasn't the ambulance lights either. This light, it was alive. It was everywhere, wrapping around me, holding me up like a baby being rocked to sleep. It wasn't just bright. It felt like something. It felt like love, like safety, like home. And then I heard it, a voice, but not just any voice. It wasn't like when Mama calls me from the kitchen or when my teacher calls my name in class. It wasn't even like when Pastor talks real deep in church. It was bigger, stronger, but soft too, like it didn't need to be loud to shake me to my soul. Dorothy, come. And the second I heard it, I knew. I knew that voice like I knew my own heartbeat. Jesus. I never met him before, not in real life at least, but I knew him. Like how a bird knows how to fly, even if it ain't never done it before. Like how you just know the sun is warm before you even step outside. And the second I knew, I ain't trying to fight it. Didn't ask any questions, didn't wonder what was happening or why. I just let go. And the light pulled me in, soft but strong, like a river carrying me home. And at that moment, I wasn't scared. I wasn't wondering what was going to happen next, because I knew. I was going home. All right, so picture this. I'm standing in front of Jesus, and for the first time ever, I feel light. Not like floating light, but like something deep inside me just got lifted away. All the worries, all the fears, all the things I didn't even realize were weighing me down. Gone. Just like that. It's warm, peaceful, like being wrapped up in the softest, safest hug you could ever imagine. But then I look up at him, and what I see, it makes my stomach twist into knots. Jesus looks sad, not just regular sadness like when you drop your ice cream cone or lose your favorite toy. This is different. This is deeper, like the kind of sadness that sticks to your bones, that makes your heart ache even if you don't know why. His eyes, those eyes that hold more love than I can even understand, are filled with sorrow. And I don't get it. I mean, he's Jesus, the King of Kings, the Prince of Peace. He won. Why would he look like that? Then, without a single word, he shows me. I don't even feel myself move, but suddenly, I'm somewhere else. I'm looking at the world, our world, but it's off. At first it looks normal. People are shopping, driving, going to work, chatting, laughing. But something's wrong. Something's really, really wrong. It's too perfect. Their movements are the same, their voices all sound the same, their laughter, it ain't real. It's empty, hollow. Like someone pressed copy-paste on their emotions, and now they're just repeating the same lines, the same gestures, the same expressions over and over and over again. Then I see it. A man walks into a store. He doesn't pull out a wallet. He doesn't tap his phone. He just waves his hand over a sleek black scanner at the counter. Beep. That's it. No cash, no card, no PIN. Just a tiny little glow under his skin. The cashier smiles, nods, moves on to the next customer. And at first I thought, okay, weird, but whatever, until Jesus lets me see what's really happening. That tiny little device, It ain't just a payment method. It ain't just for convenience. At first they told people it was just to make life easier. No more lost credit cards, no more forgotten passwords, no more identity theft. Just a quick scan and boom, you're good to go. Banks started requiring it. Businesses stopped taking cash. Hospitals wouldn't treat you without it. No chip, no service. It happened so slowly, so quietly, that most people didn't even notice. And then, one day, it wasn't optional anymore. I see people, mothers, fathers, kids, standing in line waiting to get tagged like cattle. Some of them are nervous, but most, they're smiling, they're excited, because the world told them this was progress, the next step in evolution, a safer, more efficient society, they said, a future where no one gets left behind. But then Jesus lets me see. I see a man standing in his living room, staring at nothing. His face is empty, his eyes are hollow. He's not there anymore. Oh, his body's still moving, still breathing, but his mind, his soul, gone. And that's when I realize the implant, it's not just tracking them, it's not just watching them, it's controlling them. Their thoughts, their choices, their beliefs, they don't question anymore. They don't resist. They don't even care. And the scariest part, they don't even know what they've lost. I turn to Jesus, my whole body shaking. Why don't they see this? Why aren't they fighting back? And Jesus, he just looks at me, his face full of sorrow, and he says, because they stopped listening to me. And suddenly I understand. These people weren't forced into slavery, they chose it. Step by step, little by little, they traded in their free will for comfort. They gave up their ability to question, to resist, to stand firm in truth. They gave up their connection to God for something they could see, something they could touch, something that made life easier. And then Jesus says something that makes my blood run cold. The greatest deception is not to force people into darkness. It is to convince them to walk into it willingly. And that's when I realize, this battle, it's already started. The war for souls isn't coming someday, it's happening right now. And most of the world, they don't even know it's begun. But Jesus isn't done, he shows me more. I see churches, big, bright, packed with people. The pastors are standing on stage, preaching with smiles on their faces, telling the crowd how wonderful the world is, how they should embrace the new technology, and how God wants them to move forward with society. They aren't warning people. They aren't calling out the deception. They're helping it. I grab Jesus' hand. My heart is pounding. Lord, why are they doing this? Don't they know the truth? He shakes his head, his voice heavy. No, because they do not ask me. They trust the world's wisdom over mine. Tears sting my eyes. But what about your people? I whisper. What about the ones who love you? And suddenly, I see them. Not everyone is blind. Not everyone is deceived. Scattered all over the world, there are people whose eyes are open. Their hearts still burn for Jesus. They refuse to take the implant. They refuse to bow to the system. They've lost their jobs, they've been cast out. They're hiding, struggling, but they're free. And even in the darkest places, I see something amazing. They are glowing. A light, real, powerful, is shining from within them, pushing back the darkness around them. These are my warriors, Jesus says, not with swords, not with violence, but with truth. And at that moment, I knew I have to go back. I have to tell people. I have to warn them. I look up at Jesus, my chest so full of emotions I can barely breathe. I have to go back, don't I? He nods, his face filled with love. Yes, Dorothy, but first there is one last thing I must show you. And just like that, everything shifts again. Jesus didn't just show me the future, he showed me a lie so big, so old, so deeply planted in our world that most people don't even question it anymore. It's like it's always been there, woven into the way we think, the way we see each other, the way we live our lives. And the scariest part? This lie wasn't made by people. No, it was planted carefully, strategically, by something much darker, something that's been working behind the scenes for generations, pulling the strings while we fought each other, blind to what was really happening. At first, I didn't understand. I saw people just living their lives, going to work, raising families, going to church, celebrating, mourning, struggling, surviving. Everything looked normal. But then Jesus opened my eyes, and suddenly I saw what was hiding beneath the surface. It was like a heavy fog hanging over the world, a thick, creeping darkness that most people couldn't even see. And in that fog I saw people, so many people, walking around carrying weights they didn't even know they were holding. I saw black people carrying anger, resentment, and pain that had been passed down through generations. Some of them had never personally experienced racism, never been mistreated, never been called less than. But the anger was still there, heavy on their shoulders, like an inheritance they never asked for, but were told they had to carry. I saw white people carrying guilt, shame, and confusion. Some of them had never harmed anyone, never enslaved anyone, never treated anyone as less. But they were told they were responsible for the past, guilty from the moment they were born. They were told no matter what they did, it would never be enough. And then I saw what was behind it all. Jesus showed me shadowy figures moving through the fog, whispering into people's ears, feeding them these lies. To black people, they whispered, "You will never be equal. They will always see you as less. Hold on to your anger, never forgive, never let go." To white people, they whispered, "You are to blame, you are guilty. You can never make up for the past. No matter what you do, you are still the problem." And people believed it. They didn't question it. They just felt it like it was their own thoughts. They thought their pain, their guilt, their division was natural, something that had always been there, something that could never be fixed. But it was never supposed to be this way. Jesus' voice thundered through the fog, cutting through the lies like a sword. "Do you see? They are not enemies. They are all my children." And at that moment, I did see. The chains weren't made of metal. They weren't wrapped around wrists or ankles. These chains were wrapped around minds. Black people bound by pain that was never meant to be theirs. White people bound by guilt that was never meant to be theirs. And every single one of them, all of them, were trapped by the same lie. Jesus lifted his hand and suddenly something incredible happened. Some of the chains broke. There were people, just a few at first, who refused to believe the lie. Black people who refused to be bitter. White people who refused to carry guilt for something they never did. People who saw each other the way Jesus did. Not as enemies, not as categories, not as history told them to, but as brothers and sisters. And these people, they glowed. The fog couldn't touch them. The whispers couldn't reach them. The enemy had no power over them because they had chosen truth over deception. But my heart broke all over again because I saw others who wouldn't let go. Even though Jesus was breaking their chains, they held on to them. Some clung to their anger because they thought it gave them power. Some held on to their guilt because they thought it made them good. But no matter which side they were on, they were still slaves. Slaves to the same deception. Jesus turned to me, his eyes full of love but also full of sorrow. The enemy uses history to keep them blind, but I came to set them free. And suddenly I understood. The battle was never about race. It was never about the past. It was never about justice. It was about control. Because as long as people were fighting each other, they wouldn't see who the real enemy was. I turned to Jesus, my whole being trembling. Lord, how do we stop this? How do we wake them up? He looked at me, his expression serious but filled with deep love. Tell them the truth. Some will listen, some will not. But the truth must be spoken. Tears filled my eyes as I nodded. I knew what he meant. This wouldn't be easy. People wouldn't want to hear it. They'd call it crazy. They'd say I was lying. They'd say I didn't understand. But I also knew what I had seen. And I knew that if even one person could break free because of these words, it would all be worth it. Because here's the truth. Real freedom doesn't come from anger. It doesn't come from guilt. It doesn't come from revenge or apologies or protests or anything this world offers. Real freedom only comes from Jesus. And as long as people keep looking at each other as enemies instead of as brothers and sisters, they will never be free. So now I ask you, what will you choose? Will you hold on to the chains? Will you let the lies tell you who you are? Will you let the whispers keep you blind? Or will you let him break them? Because I'll tell you something the enemy doesn't want you to know. He doesn't care what side you're on. He doesn't care if you carry anger or guilt, pain or blame. He wins as long as you stay blind. As long as you stay in the fog, as long as you stay divided, he's already won. But Jesus came to set you free. I wish I could make you feel what I felt. I wish I could make you see what I saw. Because if you could, you would understand. This isn't just a dream or a story or some wild imagination. It's real. And time is running out. Before Jesus sent me back, he showed me something so terrifying, so overwhelming, that even now as I sit here telling you this, I feel chills just remembering it. He didn't just tell me what was coming, he showed me. And what I saw will stay with me for the rest of my life. I saw 2 roads. The first road was big, wide and smooth. It looked so easy to walk on, and so many people were on it. They were laughing, talking, living their lives like everything was fine. It looked normal, safe. If you didn't know any better, you'd think it was the right way to go. But then I looked closer, and I realized something horrifying. There was something wrong, something off. It was subtle at first, just a shadow creeping along the edges of the road. But as I watched, that shadow grew darker, bigger, stretching toward the people walking there. I wanted to scream, to warn them, to tell them to turn back, but they didn't see it. They just kept walking, smiling, talking, moving forward. And then, one by one, they disappeared into the darkness. Not quickly, not all at once. It was slow, quiet, almost gentle, like a fog creeping in, swallowing them whole. They didn't scream. They didn't fight. They didn't even know it was happening. They thought they were safe. They thought life was good. But they weren't. They were being led straight into destruction. Then I turned and saw the second road. This road was different. It was narrow, rough and broken. It wasn't smooth like the first one. It was steep, rocky, hard to walk on. It looked dangerous, and almost no one was walking on it. But when I followed it with my eyes, I saw something that made my heart race. Light. Bright, warm, golden light pouring down at the very end of the road. And standing in that light, waiting, was Jesus. He was watching, hoping. I turned to him, and when our eyes met, my whole soul trembled. Not because I was afraid, but because I saw something in him that I wasn't expecting. Sorrow. Deep, endless sorrow. And then he spoke. "Many will choose the easy road," he said, his voice filled with grief. "But those who seek me, those who trust me, they will find the way home." I wanted to speak, wanted to do something, but before I could, I felt it. A pull, a force. Something was dragging me back. It was strong, powerful. I tried to stay. I wanted to stay, but I had no control over it. And then My eyes shot open, my lungs gasped for air. I was back. The weight of my body, the aching in my chest, the beeping of the hospital machines, it all hit me at once. I heard voices, my family crying, calling my name, hands gripping mine, holding on like they were afraid to let go. I turned my head and saw the doctor standing over me, his eyes wide in shock. I heard him whisper to a nurse, "She shouldn't be here, she was gone for too long." But I was here, and I knew why. Jesus sent me back, not for myself, not to live my life the way I used to, but to tell you, to warn you. The world is changing, the deception has already begun, and people don't even realize it. They're walking down that first road, heading straight for destruction, and they don't see it. They don't know where it leads. They think they're safe. They think life is fine. But I saw where it goes. That's why I'm telling you. Wake up. Open your eyes before it's too late. Because one day, every person on this earth will have to make a choice. And once that choice is made, there is no turning back. I don't care if you believe me. I don't care if you think I'm crazy. I stood with Jesus. I saw the truth. So now I'm telling you, seek him while you still can, because he is coming, sooner than you think. And when that day comes, the only thing that will matter is which road you're on. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to continue sharing these powerful stories and creating a space for open, heartfelt conversations. Click the notification bell so you're always updated when we post new content. Together, let's explore the unseen, celebrate the miraculous, and inspire one another to live with love, faith, and wonder.